I gotta go celebrate real quick. Today we got a Foxbody Mustang with Megasquirt. Actually still has a Ford motor in it. Stock block, it's probably not gonna make a bunch of power. It's got an On3 kit, 60-pound injectors, fuel pump, manual transmission, and we've had to sort out a handful of different things so far. One of the primary issues, which I had never seen before, is the starter was actually wired to the starter solenoid backwards, and it was the new style starter that has the solenoid built into it. So one of the posts on the starter solenoid was actually run to the alternator. So what was happening is key on, engine off, and cranking, everything appeared to be working normal, but once the car built up enough engine RPM for the alternator to start working, it wouldn't shut the alternator, or I'm sorry, it wouldn't shut the starter off. So the car would start and run, and then the starter would still keep running. So had to sort that out, swap valve covers, welded some fittings, ran some lines, put a catch can in, wired up the radiator fan. The On3 downpipe didn't come anywhere remotely close to lining up to the exhaust, so we had to cut that apart and re-weld that. Installed some gauges, moved some stuff around there, and basically at the point with it now where it sort of has to work, or it's probably going to be the end of the road for it. Kind of exceeded what the budget was for the car. If I'm being completely honest, at this point it looks like I'm most likely kind of tuning this and losing money, but try to be a nice guy and help people out, and it came from quite a ways away to get here. So if everything goes nice and smooth and we can get it running and get him back out on the road, I'll be happy. Hopefully he'll be happy. So keeping my fingers crossed that everything's gonna work out. And on that note, I can't feel my fingers because it's freezing cold outside. I finally got this thing up and running. I actually kind of went through hell getting it going for a handful of different reasons and different stuff going on with the car. I don't do a ton of Megasquirt stuff, so I always got to spend a bunch of time like remembering what I used to know. I don't know what gear is in this, so I'm going to calculate, let the dyno calculate that first. I built kind of like a generic VE table, an ignition table. So we'll run through and sweep through the map for all the VE stuff, and I'll kind of show you how we can use the dyno to, steady state control it and hold it at a given RPM, and kind of bang out like every load cell at any given RPM point. So I'm going to calculate the RPM and all that. So I'll be back in a second. All right, looks like it's got 410s in it, and it's a little bit lean, so I'm just gonna add, I'll just add 10% to get it started. The clutch in this thing is like, I feel like I'm gonna blast my foot through the firewall. Too much. Well, valve's kind of rowdy. Oh, and it has no brakes. I don't know why it has no brakes. So you spend the most time like right here, just trying to get it like into the actual ballpark. Which, all things considered, with what I've gone through to get to this point, it's pretty close. Far closer than I was expecting. Different than normal. Usually you can't hear like that much of a a tone change in the engine by changing the air-fuel ratio. But so if I hold shift in the hotkey, it moves in 1% increments, but if I hold control, it moves in 10%. I keep pushing the wrong button, and then control Z doesn't work. And yeah, I keep running around in circles like that. All the header wrap on this thing smells real bad. Alright, I'm actually going to bring the engine RPM down a little bit. Basically have the dyno holding it here. Here's the load cell. So that's full throttle and it's still holding it at the same RPM. But it's a little warm. I'm gonna let it cool off. Basically just gonna continue doing this a few more times. And just got out and looked under the car, and it looks like all the oil leaks are taken care of, which is super happy about that. Seemed like each time we got to run, we had to stop and take care of a big leak. It started perfectly every time until right now. Looks like I need to add a little cranking fuel. I guess I haven't run it at coolant temperatures this high yet. Let's see. See if that makes a difference. It's conveniently enough, right at that coolant temperature, a lot of the enrichment was being pulled out. It still needs it. Alright. That was an easy fix. Alright, everything looks pretty good there. About to fall out of it. Alright, either there's a rev limiter that's being enabled or it's dropping the crank sensor. Now the rev limiter. Launch controls turned off. That's a new one. Alright, let me investigate this. This is a shame too because it's running pretty good. Alright, I think I just dodged a major bullet there. And we're now looking around in the engine bay, and the distributor, the connector was in place obviously because it was running, but it wasn't like flipped on all the way. So just free revving it a few times, it seems like that side of it's okay now. That's spot on there. I'm going to be so happy if we can get this thing on and off the dyno today. Starting to make some boost. Felt like there was a boost cut. Hopefully it doesn't make much more boost than that. I think I'm gonna switch from steady state to like making some actual sweep runs. That way we don't have to load it quite as hard. But everything, what am I, 3,500 RPM or so and below, I think we're good to go. Idle's nice. Turns the idle pretty well. Awesome, got my fingers crossed. Like I said before, this one's kind of really fought me every step of the way. Just doesn't want to leave. Just jinxed it, now it's gonna be here forever. I'm just going to make a little short run. God damn it, I haven't set the dyno up yet. This Innovate wideband takes like 6 months to warm up. So it feels like it has a gigantic wastegate spring in it. But basically, as soon as you hit the gas, it's just on the boost cut. This has like a little mechanical boost gauge on it, or what's that thing called? Boost controller. And I don't have a lot of faith in that, so I just bypass that just so we can make sure we get the boost as low as it'll go. And I have what theoretically should be an excessive amount of fuel ramping in with boost. So again, in theory, the first few runs on this should be pretty rich, trying to keep it safe, and it has no timing in it. So start fat and soft on timing, and hopefully be able to run a manageable amount of boost. The way the manifold on this thing and the way the wastegate is, you probably can't see it. It wouldn't really surprise me if the boost wants to run away. Luckily, these things don't rev very high or flow very good, so that's on our side. So let's try it out, see what happens. Yeah, so basically at 3,600 RPM or so, it just grenades the boost cut. That's with the boost controller completely disabled. And that's too early in the run for that to even be boost creep. So it must just have a monster truck wastegate spring in there. Need to bring some fuel in too. All right, guess I don't have a choice but to pull the wastegate off and see what we're dealing with on the spring. So I think they had the vacuum line just ratted super goofy, and basically in a way that would make it run away. So cooling temperature is good enough, so I'm going to try and make a run like this, keep our fingers crossed. There's all kinds of stuff in here, so I don't know if there's a box with some wastegate springs, but I'm hoping that this will mean that we won't need it. I always forget you got to start the log and name it first. Screws me up every time. I didn't even rev it to 6,000 or so, 5,500, and it's super fat. So I don't have brakes. I can't even make the dyno stop. E-brake works. All right, let me dig through this log and see what we're working with. All right, everything looked pretty good. It was pretty fat up top, which I knew it was going to be. That was kind of the goal. And it made about 4 or 5 pounds boost. So I actually brought the rev limiter down a little bit, and just gonna try it again. Once I get the air fuel flattened out, we'll throw a little timing at it and see what it does. Running really good. see just leaning it out made a pretty significant difference, and there's no reason to rev it high. It doesn't make any power out there. So dropping the rev limiter down was the right move. And still a little rich, but you can see much leaner. So I just got to bring that back up, and then we'll be good to go on the fuel. So I'm definitely happy I hooked up my wideband. This one, if you look just at this log, the air fuel is like within 1 or 2% of the target, but mine's showing a little bit different. I'm gonna trust Old Faithful. I put it in there for a reason, because I don't have a lot of faith in these Innovate things. And we'll just flatten that out a little bit, and I think yeah, I'll throw a degree of timing in it on this one. We'll see what happens. If you look at like the torque curve, and then the fuel map, and then what my wideband says and what this wideband says, everything lines up with what my wideband says. So we're gonna roll with that one. All right, this is basically 1 degree more timing. Looks happier. It's not bad power for 4 or 5 pounds of boost or whatever it is. I don't remember what size turbo this is. I'll dig back through the notes from the car and throw it in the description. The graph looks beautiful. You see how nice and clean the graph is. When they start looking like this, it's when things aren't real happy. So the difference between the yellow and the green is the 1 degree of timing. Alright, try it again. I did take a touch of fuel out on this one because it's still a little bit away from my target, but it is pretty flat. And it's started up just fine every time ever since I added the startup enrichment at the warmer coolant temperatures. Closer on the timing than I thought, and it was synced and verified with the timing light, so I'm going to pull that timing back out. Air fuel looks better. So now the worst part of the whole deal is trying to manipulate and find basically the starting point for the manual boost controller. Now it sounds like it might have blown out an exhaust gasket. Alright, so let's go check that out first, I guess. Blew out an O2 sensor blown, like a bung plug. That'd be an easy fix. I can work with that. There's a vacuum line they had on there, so I'm gonna swap fittings there, and then I think I'm just gonna hit it with the air compressor and try and figure out where it starts bypassing some air, rather than trying to make 28 different runs and figuring it out that way. I'm definitely glad I tried the compressed air method. Even with the controller turned all the way down, it still bypasses enough air that I think the boost might increase more than I want it to. If turning it all the way down still makes the boost go too high, then I know not to even bother messing with it and wondering if it's installed wrong or upside down or backwards or whatever. And then second, I see why the boost control didn't work from the beginning. So I'm gonna need to add some different vacuum hose and some T's and everything else. So I'm gonna do all that stuff now. And this has taken double the amount of time I was expecting it to at this point. So hopefully we can turn the boost up 2 or 3 pounds and call it good. So I'm gonna do that now. Just kind of coincidentally happened to find a vacuum hose that's running back to the vacuum manifold that's not going to anything. I just had 2 customers stop by. The phone rang 3 times. Finally got all the vacuum lines and stuff ran. And then a truck freight order I've been waiting on for 2 weeks finally shows up. Driver couldn't find the unit. Had to talk to him on the phone and explain it all to him. He finally pulls up, opens the door, and the package isn't on the truck. And even better than that, they don't know where it is. So this type of stuff only happens to me. What's your thoughts? You think the boost is going to do what I actually want it to do? It's turned all the way down. Alright, we didn't hit boost cut, so that's good. You do need to turn it up a little bit more. So what I was trying to avoid is happening anyways. Basically with it turned all the way down, it's not doing anything, and then you go the slightest little increment up and it's too much. Try it again. Basically backed it down to where it's in a couple of turns or whatever, but there's no tension on it. So I don't know what to expect. Something in the rear end of this thing's not happy. I don't know what the hell else I could do. Alright, I think this is going to be the last attempt at this. If this doesn't work, I might just have to do the old CO2 trick. Really just need a few PSI. Boost is either on or off. One more, just for the hell of it. Alright, I'm out of patience. That's the end of this boost controller. Alright, got air compressor and regulator hooked up basically to replace as if it was CO2. Got a couple of pounds on top of the gate, and basically if it does the same thing now, then it's a wastegate problem. But that particular style of manual boost controller I've had horrible luck with over the years, so this is exactly what I was expecting. But hopefully this will do the trick. So I guess the wastegate's no good. So the wastegate setup on this is like significantly worse than I thought. I don't know how well you can see, but basically you have a 4-to-1 manifold here that goes directly into the turbo. 4-to-1 over there with a crossover tube, and there's only one wastegate, which is in the worst spot ever, and it's down there, but it's only bleeding off from one bank. So basically this entire side of the engine is feeding the turbo unregulated. I don't know how that's acceptable at all. Also looks like the V-band is leaking pretty bad. That's really hot. I just need like 3 pounds of boost and I'll be happy. Everyone will be happy, but I'm not happy right now. Alright, one last ditch effort. Some old school stuff just because I refuse to be defeated. Cross your fingers for me. It's finally finished. Hold on, I gotta go celebrate real quick. So the goal on this thing was 400 horsepower. and we did it. These motors, like I said, starting off with this thing, they don't make a ton of power, but it's like, feel like that's the hardest I've ever had to work to make 400. But the important thing is that the customer had a goal of 400 and we powered through it and made it happen. Looking through the log here, the boost is about 13 pounds. So I kind of still suspect that there's some things that should be taken care of, addressed, but just kind of is what it is with a kit like this. Should be more than enough to have some fun with though. Timing looks good, air fuel looks good, so I'm definitely going to call this quits here. It's 4:15 right now, and I was hoping to be done with this at noon. I'll show you the dynograph. Power, and then if you go over here, you can kind of see the progression of timing, boost timing, and no doubt with another degree or so, it'd probably shoot up to, where were we at, 415, I don't know, 430, 440, but a little more boost than I'd really like to be running, and a lot of things seem a little bit questionable. So my main objective here is to get this car back to him in one piece. He can have some fun with it, play with it, and if he decides he wants to make more power rather, then we can change some things up, and making more power is pretty easy to do. So that's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.